Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm super excited. I got a really good friend of mine. Mike and I play a lot of golf together. We won't talk about the golf game today, Mike, but we have a really good time. Mike's a really funny guy. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. So I tell you, one of the reasons I wanted to bring Mike on is because, you know, in my life, I've definitely met people from all over the place, but I never really became as close of friends as you and I are from someone who grew up in Canada. And so I was really intrigued in trying to understand a perspective, because I know I have an audience all over the world right now, and a perspective of a Canadian with money and what was raised with you. So again, I really appreciate you coming out here and doing this. So let's start with the first thing, which would be, since you were born and raised in Canada, right?
No, I was actually born in London, England, but I grew up in Canada. I moved to Canada when I was 12 years old.
Wow. Okay.
By the way, I love being called a Canadian with money.
So you didn't get to Canada until you were 12?
Yes.
Wow. So, well, then let's go back before you got to Canada, because I find oftentimes with money, right, that we really start learning about money before the age of 12. Is that true for you?
Yes, a little bit.
Well, to take me back, that your memory can, what was your first experience with money where you knew it was something tangible that you could, you either worked for it or someone gave it to you and you could trade things for it? When did you understand that?
Probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old. In elementary school, you used to have to pay for your lunch. So I was given lunch money to buy my lunch with at school. And I used to spend it on candy, of course. But that's when I first had the concept that, money was used to purchase things.
Okay, right. I remember getting lunch money too, and you're right. We'd get. I don't know what you got back in the day, but I think my lunch used to cost. My mom used to know that lunch is $1.25. Here's $1.50. Right?
Yeah.
Give me an extra quarter or something. But then we'd go spend it on candy or whatever.
Exactly.
Something silly, but at least we knew we were learning that lesson, right? Hey, I had to give you this for that. Right. What about, talk to me, when did you actually start earning money? I mean, mom was giving you money for lunch, obviously, because we got to eat at school. But when did you actually earn your first dollars?
Probably about 12 years old when I moved to Canada. My dad was always an entrepreneur, so I wasn't used to getting a lot of spending money. We were taught you had to earn your money. So around 12 is when I started doing the paper route. 13, 14, we lived in Ottawa, Canada, which got a lot of snow in the wintertime. So you could make a lot of money offering to shovel people's driveways when you got probably the equivalent of a foot and a half of snow. So I did that in my early teens. My father owned a dry cleaning business. That's actually what we moved to Canada for. He opened up a dry cleaning business in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. And I used to help out on holidays, and summertimes I worked there, and he paid me. And as I started going through high school, I was pretty good at math. I took accounting classes and stuff. So probably by the time I was 16, 17, I was doing all the bookkeeping and accounting for the family business.
Wow.
So yeah, I had a good sense of money and the value of it and how much our family was making and profit and that kind of thing.
At that young age, which is very not the norm by any means, I would think, for a lot of us at that age, can you remember, like, why did you want to go work? I mean, what was the reason for working at that age?
It was expected.
Oh, really?
Well, it was expected that you were going to do something to make money. So my dad gave me a lot of latitude to do the paper routes and the snow shoveling and all that kind of stuff. But we were expected to help out with the family business.
So when you made money, right, whatever the amount was, that's not as important as why you made it and what you did with it. So when you remember when you first started making money, what did you do with that money? Did you just spend it on yourself frivolously? Person? You just, as a kid buying, kid stuff?
I did. He paid me very well for the age that I was, and I spent money on jeans and records and that kind of stuff that teenagers do.
Did you save any of it?
Yes, a little bit. In my mid-teens, probably not a lot, but we were expected to go to university. We call it university in Canada. It's called college here. Mm-hmm. We were expected to go, and because I was working for my father and saving money, I was expected to pay the full tuition. So by the time I was 18 and I went to college, I had the full 4 years tuition saved up.
Wow. Okay. So you saved for a purpose, right? Because I talk about saving and saving for a purpose, not just to save money, right? Which is a great lesson learned at an early age. Subconsciously, are these habits that follow you today? Do you save for a purpose in today?
Yes, it kind of happens automatically now because, late 50s, me and my wife are both working. We're making good money. So we're making enough that you can save without having to struggle. When we were younger, my father taught me a lot of economic principles. He made me read The Wealthy Barber when I was in my teens about saving 10% of your money, putting it away. So when we were starting a young family, we would put away money if we need to buy a washing machine or a car or any of that kind of stuff. We were taught for the lower items to pay cash for things and not have a lot of credit. So I learned that from my father.
So let's segue down that road for a minute, because I like to talk about tradition. I talk to a lot of people, and I find that, believe it or not, most parents don't teach their kids anything about money. You know what I mean? So if your dad actually sat you and your siblings down and talked about money and how it works and why you should save, how much you should save, where to save it, types of accounts, he talked all about those types of things?
Yeah.
At what age?
Late teens.
Late teens.
Yeah. So
not when you started working at 12, he didn't really break that down for you that early.
No.
Okay. Which is interesting because in today's world, I know people who have kids that are like 5, 6 years old, and they're totally teaching them all of that. I've got a friend of mine who's got a 5-year-old knows how to trade on the stock market.
Wow, that's pretty
right. Yeah. It sounds crazy, but if you think about it, imagine where you'd be today, you and I, right? If I learned how to trade stocks on the market when I'm 5, 6 years old, holy crap, imagine where my life would have went. Doing the right things with money, right?
Agreed.
So that's why I like to talk about when I'm having guests on, like, where did you learn this? Who taught it to you? Did you receive it? Like, I don't want to do that. I want to just spend my money on, junk or whatever. But did you live in a pretty strict household?
Yeah, my parents are very strict, but I just feel lucky in that there wasn't a lot of heavy pressure to learn about money and stuff as a kid.
Okay.
They introduced that stuff to me until I was probably 16, 17-ish. So as a 14, 15-year-old, I had more than enough money. We were middle class to go out and buy jeans and go to movies and buy records, and I enjoyed that. I feel blessed to not have had that kind of awareness and stress until I was a little bit older.
So you find that it would have been stressful? Or do you think it's stressful for young kids to learn before, say, 15 or something? You think that's too stressful?
Yeah. I mean, as adults, there's this pressure to make money and save and invest and all the rest of that kind of stuff. I mean, for my sons, I didn't start talking about that stuff until just before they started working.
Which was how old? Because I know
15-ish.
Our generation, right? Because we're both in our early 50s. Our generation, we could go to work at 12 years old. Like you said, we had paper routes and that type, and you shoveled snow and that type of stuff. In today's environment, I mean, kids aren't even legally allowed to go work at a regular job. You can go and ask your neighbors, to mow the lawn and rake leaves or snow or whatever. But it's tough. I remember my youngest, just a few years ago, trying to get a job at 17, and like, nah, you got to be 18. You can't go work here. You know what I mean?
You can pretty well start working at 16.
Not any like at the mall or anything. You can't.
My wife was really very much into making sure the kids knew how to swim, so they were lifeguards at like 15, 16. That's the kind of work.
Yeah, that's a work. Yeah, I know a young girl that does that lifeguard work. Interesting. So I'm just trying to parallel it doesn't really matter that you basically grew up. Yeah, actually, your childhood was split then. Because if you moved from London at 12 to Canada, and then you did another, let's say, young adult, you got another 6 or 8 years in Canada till you're an actual adult, probably went out on your own. Did you see the difference in between those two countries?
Between moving from England to Canada?
Yeah. Monetarily, with money.
I wasn't aware of it. I have a sense that the standard of living in Canada and the US is much better than that in England.
Okay.
Population density, just people are crammed in together. So when we moved to Canada, moving from living in a very urban area to, I would call suburbs, it was different.
Okay.
It was different.
Okay. So again, it's just fascinating to me, I guess I kind of grew up in a bubble because I still live where I grew up. I was born and raised in Vegas, and I've been here my whole life. I'm probably never going to leave outside of vacationing. So I'm just curious and fascinated with people. And I've interviewed another friend of mine that's from England also and whatnot. But the currency was different, right? Do you remember the currency change when you're in Canada? And then how old were you when you moved to the States?
Mid-40s when I moved to the States.
And so I
lived in Canada for 30-something years.
So, I mean, but they have American dollars in Canada.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the currency difference. I mean, we traveled a lot from Canada to the U.S. And when we first moved there in the 70s, I believe the Canadian dollar was worth a little bit more than the U.S. dollar.
Okay.
And then a few years later, we saw it have parity. And then for the last 15, maybe 20 years, the Canadian dollar has been worth 75% of the American dollar. So we've seen that thing change around. We've seen it gone from, we used to drive from Ottawa to Buffalo to go buy clothing and stuff like that because it was dirt cheap back in the 70s. And now the opposite is true.
Wow.
So yeah, we watched that happen.
So the first half of your adult life, right? Say 20 to 40, you were in Canada.
Yes.
Right. What made you leave Canada and come to the U.S.?
It was a business opportunity. I spent 20 years working for Xerox Canada. Started there pretty well right out of school, and kind of worked my way up a little bit to kind of middle management, director level position. And one of the guys that helped mentor me in my career worked for Xerox, and he had moved to the U.S. to start up a human resources outsourcing company. And I don't know if you're familiar with the term PEO, Professional Employment Organization, but we would go into medium and small size companies and sell them on the benefit of taking over their employees and leasing them back to you. So if you had if you had a business that had 50 employees, instead of dealing with all the headaches of payroll and workers' comp and insurance benefits, we would hire those 50 employees and lease them back to you for a monthly fee. And so we did that. It was a booming business in the early 2000s to mid 2000s. And when we had the Great Recession happen, kind of took the wind out of our sails, and the business ended up going under. But I moved here for a business opportunity.
Nice. So using that word, I like that word opportunity, because there's a lot of people out there everywhere, right? That, we all know there's plenty of people that struggle in life with money. But I'm a big believer in we have to recognize when opportunities, are come our way. And oftentimes a lot of people don't recognize an opportunity when it comes, but obviously you had an opportunity and you had a chance to it probably paid more money by coming here.
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, a lot more. So you're like, you know what? I'm sure you were pretty comfortable because you had half your adult life over there in Canada. What's the reason for leaving? I'm pretty comfortable. I'm happy here, but until someone waves, a few more bucks in front of your face, and you're like, I'll go wherever you want, right?
Exactly.
And then you came here to the States, and what do you think? You going to finish your whole life and career here in the States? You want to go back to Canada?
Oh, I love it here. I love living in Las Vegas.
Yeah?
Yeah. If I had my druthers, I would stay in Las Vegas for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, because
my wife doesn't feel that way. So.
Well, there's no white stuff on the ground here. That's exactly why, right?
Fantastic.
You're never going to shovel snow living here. So as I'm thinking back, your childhood, the first 12 years over in England, and then you come over here, and I'm just curious how much of a mindset shift you might have had, because that's a whole different culture, right? And so now you've been through 3 different countries, right, in your lifetime, and long enough in each one to probably see a pretty substantial difference in understanding the way people live in each one. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, definitely.
So, and I definitely don't want to start playing favorites, you know, which one you like the best or whatnot. But I'm just curious if you believe that was an advantage for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Tell me why.
Growing up in England, again, I talk about the population density. There was more of a sense of community. You knew all your neighbors. You would walk everywhere. So growing up as a child, I probably had a dozen friends that lived on my street or really close by. We'd be out in front of the house playing and all that kind of stuff. You don't see that much in the U.S. here. We knew everybody. We had a lot of family around. There's a real sense of community there. Moving to Canada, we grew up in the suburbs, so not as much of a sense of community, but and I wouldn't choose between the three of them. I love all the three places I've lived equally. I love being in the U.S., I love being in Canada, and growing up in England. Canada was, it's more socialistic than the U.S. For example, with the free medical care and stuff, they make sure everybody's taken care of. They're often referred to as the kindest, sweetest people in the world. They're really beautiful, friendly people. But I had a very much of a career mindset there. I fully expected to work for Xerox for 40 years and retire and do all that stuff. I wasn't as entrepreneurial thinking. I always thought I'd end up starting my own business. But moving to the U.S., there is much more of an entrepreneurial spirit here. When I moved here to work for that company, I had part ownership of it. I thought I was going to become hugely financially successful. And moving to Vegas, when I did in 2006, there was, before the crash hit, there was just an incredible sense of business opportunity. I thought I was not only going to be a part of the company I was working for, but spread out and do a bunch of other things. And I don't believe I would have gotten into real estate investing if I had stayed in Canada. The economics at the financial level that I'm at just would not have worked. I bought a house in 2001 for $300,000. I sold it 5 years later for $600,000, and that was 2006. 14 years later, that place is probably worth $2 million.
Wow.
So young kids graduating, and it was just a 2,000 square foot home. They can't afford to pay that kind of money for a house here. Here, right. Living in Vegas, you can get the same size house for maybe $200,000-ish. So if you've got a little bit of cash, you can afford to get into the real estate market here.
Right, right.
And England is even worse. A young person can't ever possibly afford to buy a house there.
No?
Not in the city. You'd have to move out somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So the opportunities for you in your life so far have been definitely more here in the States. And then in this city here, our city's been growing exponentially since 1980. So really cool. So I want to make a little shift here and talk about, because you were in those three different areas and we know that you were Xerox, and your decisions to move were monetarily because people wanted to pay you more money. Talk to me and the people out there, the type of goals you were setting and how and why you believe goals are important, if they even are to you.
Oh, they absolutely have to.
Okay.
You cannot be successful at anything in your life without having a goal. On a personal side, you have to have a goal for the kind of lives that you want your children to lead and where you want them to go with a lot of their input. You have to have goals about the kind of spouse that you want, the kind of person that you want to be, your financial objectives. I set goals in every area of my life. So
when I talk about, because I have a goal setting course that I talk about, and one of the really important things that I've learned over time now, and I practice it as much as I can, and it's definitely easier said than done, is writing your goals down. It's so important to write them down. I mean, Harvard has done studies to the fact that they did a study back in 1979 that people who write their goals down, right, when you're finishing high school or college, doesn't matter, and you decide to write your goals down instead of just think about them in your head, right? 10 years later, they went back to the same study they did, and everybody who wrote their goals down made 10 times more money.
That's pretty incredible.
You know what I mean? So yeah. This is not just the importance of setting a goal, because everybody, like, we're getting ready to have the first part of the New Year's just happen here, right? And every first of the year, what happens? Everybody sets resolutions, right? Yeah. AKA another word for a goal. And we all know everybody fizzles out, right? The gyms love the first of the year.
Exactly.
Because everybody goes and joins, and then they sign up all these contracts, and then, 4 to 6 weeks later, they all fizzle out. But meanwhile, the gym made a lot of money. But anyway, so writing goals is so important that I try to write mine on a weekly basis, but I know people that write them on a daily basis. You know what I mean? And the thing with goals is, and the reason I teach it is some people think like, well, my goal is X, right? And okay, I know my goal, it's X. And then if you don't write it down or you don't tell yourself your goal over and over again, it's really hard to achieve them versus the people who write them down, even on a daily or weekly basis, are 10 times more likely to achieve that goal.
Agreed.
So with your goals and that you've set in your lifetime, how do you actually set your goals and what do you do?
So I've been setting goals my whole life. I like to journal a little bit, and my wife is really into the beginning of the year. It's a new year. You should write your goals down. She actually would make us all write them down at the beginning of the year. I'm not a resolution kind of guy because my goals are ongoing, but I'm crystal clear about what I want to achieve in each of the key areas of my life, and I call that spiritual, health, financial, emotional, and relationship. And so I have a very clear picture in my mind of where I want to be in each of those goals. I write them down. I set annual, monthly, weekly, and daily goals. So every Monday morning I sit down and I say, what do I want to get accomplished this week in each of those areas? And it becomes a daily thing. So I don't believe that I have to write my new goals. I know what they are all the time and they're constantly evolving, but I like to write. I like to see it in a book.
Yeah. Now, would you say that that part of your life, and in a minute I'm going to ask you, when did that actually happen for you? But do you believe your life would be different if you didn't set goals? Because, a lot of people don't set goals. I don't know if you've talked to people and asked them about those types of things. Maybe your kids, do they actually set goals? Because there's a difference between a goal and a dream, right? A dream with a plan, taking action can become a goal, right? But a lot of people dream. I dream I want to make, $X a year. I dream I want the big house. But when you set a goal like, hey, I want a newer house in 3 years, and then you reverse engineer what it's going to take to get that new house, yeah, that's a very attainable, achievable goal, right? Because you have to do X, Y, Z to get to that goal. How old do you think you were, and who taught you how to set goals?
My father taught me about setting financial goals, about the money piece of it, but I was lucky enough or blessed enough to go through a bunch of experiences when I'm in my early 20s that taught me about that stuff. I did a lot of Anthony Robbins reading and training. I did communication courses. There's a group of folks out there. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Forum and all that. So I did a bunch of communication type skills. And then in my mid-30s, I had a sales job at Xerox. And my sales manager became a mentor to me. And he started introducing things like The Power of Having a Positive Attitude, Think and Grow Rich, all those books I've read for all that kind of stuff. And so when you talk about everything starts with a dream, everything does start with a dream or desire. And if you focus intensely on what your dream or desire is, and you're serious about putting the work in to achieve that, the goals will flow and the action plans will flow and your daily activities will all flow to support your dream.
I think you couldn't have said it any better. A couple of things that you said right there that I love to hear. You mentioned how you got a mentor, right? And I'm a huge believer in people, in your whatever age. And it really, you can have a mentor at any age. But I think it's really important that we all get mentors and I use the word loosely, kids. Because at our age, if you're 22, you're a kid to me, right? Yeah. But it's really important to get these mentors. And a lot of times, like you just mentioned, you got a mentor from someone at work, yes. Right? Because sometimes our mentors, we try to think maybe our parents could be our mentors. But I think strangers or people you work with, right? Someone that you have a different level of respect for if they're going to be your mentor because they're in a higher position, and we kind of look up to people that are in the higher positions kind of thing. That it's all now kind of making sense to me as your story's unfolding, right?
Yeah.
That how you went to work and you got these mentors, and that guy led you on to learn things from Tony Robbins, which is amazing. Think and Grow Rich, an amazing book. Everybody, I mean, these are all books that everybody should read and people they should listen to because they really can change your life if you let them, right? Meaning you started doing a lot of self-education about this. Super kudos to you, bro.
Yeah. I just feel like I was lucky.
Yeah, and we could talk like that was lucky.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's lucky. Again, earlier when I mentioned how, opportunity comes to everybody all the time. I'm a big believer in it, but I just think most people don't recognize when the opportunity is literally right in front of you, right? Like that person who became your mentor, did that happen by accident, by coincidence? Did you guys during a conversation and you said, man, I really like to learn XYZ, and then maybe he verbally said, look, I'll be your mentor. I mean, how did that come about?
Just organically, he was an incredible person.
Okay.
We clicked. I started working for him. We spent a lot of time talking socially in addition to, getting the business taken care of. And I'm lucky to have been in his circle. He's just an incredible guy.
So you were able to ask him a lot of questions because, again, at that age, at early 20s, we're all very inquisitive. Really, we want to just learn as much as we can about life. And so I think the good lesson out there for you guys out there listening is, listen, it's great to get a mentor, and yours was organically because sometimes when we get mentors, it's specific. Like, man, you're awesome, dude. I was really, been looking for kind of a mentor to, guide me along. Would you be open to that? I've definitely had guests tell me that. And my mentors are more like yours organically, where, you're just a sponge because this person you could just feel how they can give you so much value in your life through their life expression. Because was your mentor like a lot older than you?
Maybe 10 years.
Okay. Hey, listen, 10 years from 20 to 30, you learn a lot of stuff. From 30 to 40, I mean, you learn a lot of stuff. So 10 years can definitely be enough. I think I've talked to some people and they're thinking like, well, a mentor is someone that's 30 or 40 years older than you. Not always the case. Doesn't have to be.
They can be younger than you.
They could be younger than you if they had those life experiences. Yeah, for sure.
One of the things I discovered when I was reading, it might have been Think of Grow Rich, is attract yourself to people that are really good at what it is you want to be. So if you decide you want to be a real estate investor, which happened to me, I went and I did a bunch of those Robert Kiyosaki courses, and I read his books about, passive income and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
If I want to get good at golf, I want to find somebody I know that's really good at golf and go spend some time hanging out and get them to show you some things. It can be anything.
Right.
You have to seek those people out.
Do you, because I know you have kids and they're young adults now, how much of these types of conversations are you having with your young kids?
Oh, I tell them everything.
Yeah.
One of my goals was to be a great father, and I wouldn't refer to myself as being a great father, but I've done everything in my power to make sure that my sons are armed with the information that they need to be successful in life. So if you were to ask my younger son right now what he would do if he got $100,000, he'd buy 5 properties and rent them out. Because that's what he's learned from me.
Right. Which is great advice. Yeah. Great advice. And the thing about, and the reason I ask that question is because I come across a lot of folks who they don't teach their kids. And I don't think it's by design, like, I don't want to teach my kids. Life just evolves that way, and or they don't know, right? I often have a phrase that I talk about, which is parents can't teach what parents don't know. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's why financial literacy is so sparse out there everywhere in the world, is that if we are not proactive as adults to learn financial literacy, then you're not going to learn it. I mean, because they're not teaching us in school. You're not going to learn it in school unless you take a financial literacy course, and now you're being proactive about it, right?
Sure.
It's my passion for doing this podcast. It's my passion for teaching like financial literacy. And I like to teach it on what I like to call 5th grade level, right? Because I find a lot of people, if you go talk to, let's say, a financial advisor, right? They're going to start talking lingo that might as well be another language. It goes right over your head. You don't even know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? And so I definitely teach it on a 5th grade level. And I personally had a lot of great feedback for it. And that's why I like doing these conversations, because I think we can all learn from just real life stories from people like you. So I really appreciate you coming out for it. Let's go into, because you've mentioned it a couple of times now, investing.
Yes.
If you can remember, how old were you when the investing bug kind of bit you, or you said to yourself and your wife, you're like, you know what, we got money here. We have to invest. And then you decided, I know that you went down the path of real estate investing, but how did that all come about and how old were you?
I've had a sense of taking your money and investing. Again, I learned it from my father. He was an entrepreneur, so he invested in his business. And he too had a couple of rental properties when I was still living at home in my late teens, early 20s. But I got into the career track thing, and like I told you, I worked for Xerox for 20 years, and I was making pretty decent money, but I wasn't thinking about investing or anything. I had the Canadian equivalent of a 401k, so I put a lot of money into that. It was actually financial adversity that got me into investing. I had a lot of money in mutual funds when the Great Recession hit, and I ended up losing 60% of my portfolio. We were financially devastated. And so I got turned off the stock market a little bit, and I cashed out what was left of my mutual fund portfolio, and I used that to buy investment properties.
Okay.
And I bought them in the Great Recession, so the price was really cheap, and they've since appreciated quite a bit. And the type of real estate investor that I like to buy and hold properties and use the rental income to support other activities. So I don't buy for investing and flipping. I've bought them in 2010, 2011, and I still have them.
Which was a great time. So I'm hearing you as you first started investing in the market. And then we all know what happened in 07, 8, 9, where the market, tanked pretty huge. And a lot of people on paper lost a lot of money. And then a lot of folks like yourself, I mean, you could have left all that in there because it's only a loss if you actually take it out,
Sure.
Right? You still had all those shares of whatever those companies were. Had you left it in and just waited it out, right? They all came back. I mean, the market closed today at 30,000, like 200 or something, right?
Yeah.
Really, I mean, the market's been doing amazing. But it's definitely when people think about investing, most people are in the market first because of 401ks or mutual funds or IRAs, Roth IRAs, that kind of thing. And then I find that investors either go that direction, market investing or real estate investing. And then I know plenty of people that play both, right?
Sure.
I was watching a video this morning how Mark Cuban hates the word diversify. We hear other investors, big time investors say, you need to diversify your portfolio, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. When I watched his this morning, it was pretty interesting how he just thinks it's the stupidest thing you could do, right? He's like, stick to what you know, invest and ride the wave all the way through, right? And again, that's going to be a difference of opinion for some people, whether you should or shouldn't. I'm in real estate. I love real estate investing. I do it instead of buy and hold. I love flipping. I love fixing and rehabbing and give me that chunk of money. And then I go on that money sits in the market. But, most of my earnings are based on compound interest. I'm just trying to get my money to just keep doubling. Let that money keep making money, right? So you're still currently wanting to buy more properties?
Yeah.
So
it was my goal when I started to do that, to have a lot more properties than I do, but the price has kind of gone up a little bit, so you can't buy as many. We're
definitely at the height of the market now. I mean, we'll be here for at least another year. It looks like, that's a crystal ball I wish we all could look into and see the right answers, but we can't. But no indicators right now of the real estate market going down. I mean, just no indicators, no indicators whatsoever. Yeah. So all we can just keep getting appreciation, and the home you live in just gets worth more and more value, and decide what you want to do with those assets. So are you now 100% investing in just real estate, and you don't invest any money in the market?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
My retirement goal is to have enough rental properties that I can live
to support your lifestyle. Yeah. Which is a great, and again, then it makes sense because a minute ago you mentioned how you went down the path of the Robert Kiyosaki trainings, right?
Yes.
And that's what he teaches. He's a 100% about passive income through real estate investing. I get it. It's a great strategy to have. It's learning how to play that game.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that play that game who don't know how to play the game correctly and lose money. Because if you're out there and you're thinking about you want to get in real estate, I can't even tell you how much I'm going to recommend that you really do your homework.
Yeah, you do.
It's not the simple numbers. I buy it for 10, I sell it for 12, I made 2. No, there's a lot more cost involved in there. And so definitely do your homework. There's a lot of free programs out there that you can learn how to do this. There's a lot of programs that are for sale out there that are decent programs, nice programs, just depending if you're the type of person who learns by yourself or you need to learn with a group of people.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to learn with a group of people, you're probably going to have to invest in a program where you're going to belong to a big group of people who are all learning at the same time.
Yeah.
Again, either way, it works both ways.
Or like you said, find a mentor.
Find a mentor.
Yeah.
Find a mentor. Would you let's talk to the audience because you've done it. Would you recommend, and I haven't answered my answer, but would you recommend if someone's out there and they have a few extra bucks, and I say a few extra bucks, they got 40, 50 grand. They want to buy a property. They don't know what they're doing. And a mentor says, I'll mentor you through the process. I want, and they negotiate a deal, 20, 30, 50%. Would you do it?
No.
No?
A real mentor is not going to charge you, and I'm talking about a personal mentor, is not going to charge you for giving you advice. There are lots of people that you can go out there to, financial advisors, real estate gurus that you can pay money to, and it's like going to school. They can teach you what you want to know. I, again, was blessed enough. Actually, it was part of attraction. I sought out people that I knew that were interested in real estate, and I talked to people like you that flip properties, and also to people that believe in renting and holding. And I learned about the kind of real estate investor that I wanted to be, and I became that.
Okay.
But there are lots of different ways that you can, take that journey, either through going to school, taking a course, like some of the courses you offer, or finding a mentor. And I recommend a mix of all of those.
Let me ask you, because we're both at this same age, basically, what does retirement mean for you?
I want to retire. I love working still. I want to work until I'm 65. And when I'm retired, like I said, I want to have enough rental properties that I can live the same lifestyle I'm living now, just with passive rental income.
So again, and I talk about retirement in my trainings. I personally hate that word. I just hate that word. I think it's a horrible thing that people should strive to retire. We are all way better off to strive to be financially independent, which means what you described, when your money makes enough money to support your lifestyle. Okay. And that's not an age, because you just mentioned 65. And I think we're all programmed, right, through school and everything, that retirement is an age and the age is 65,
sure,
which is the most absurd thing you could teach anybody. Because do you think Mark Zuckerberg at 24 years old, when he developed, Facebook and became a billionaire, he could have retired?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But did he retire? No, because he had a passion he was following, right? He wanted to follow that thing all the way through.
But think about the word. I love the word retirement. To me, that means retired from work. I don't have to do a 9 to 5 anymore.
You don't have to trade.
I'll never not have a business. I'll never not have some kind of interest that's making an income.
So that's a different perspective. So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying for you, retirement means that I don't trade time for money anymore.
Exactly.
My money works for me.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good way of looking at it.
It's just a word.
It's just a word.
When I say 65, what that means is I don't have to be in front of a computer from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night, taking care of clients and doing that kind of thing.
Right.
I'm going to have a business that I work part-time. There's always money coming in. You deal with the issues.
You'll be in control of, you'll be in control of your time. You get to say, I'm going golfing today. Yeah. Or I'm sleeping in watching movies all day today.
Exactly.
You're not answering to somebody. Yeah, that would be, I guess, if you want to use the word retirement. I don't know. I just don't see myself retiring to that like that. I love to work. I love to talk to people. I love to make money. I love new experiences. And if we want to call it work, call it work. I just call it life. And I just have a good time at it. And I haven't had a boss since I was 22. So that's most of my life. And so I can't remember what that really feels like. So I've always had control of my own time. So that's why I can golf on Monday mornings if I want to, where most people are going to work.
Yes.
Right. Which is interesting. Wow. Really interesting story here. I really appreciate you coming out and sharing that story with everybody. So here's a guy who basically has been in 3 countries. Because you're almost 60, and you're almost third.
Yeah.
In these countries, and learning what you learn and going down the path of creating your retirement, your version of retirement, which is cool. So I hope you guys got a lot out of it. I did. I think it was a really cool story. Mike, thanks for coming out.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin.
And you're playing golf tomorrow with me?
Absolutely.
All right, baby. We're going to play some golf tomorrow. So you guys take care. And don't forget, please subscribe to my channel. I got great news stories every single week for you. Hit that like button. You like Mike's story? Smash that like button. Tell everybody that you loved it. So We'll see you guys. Talk to you next week. You take care.
Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed making all these episodes for you. Remember, we're just having conversations with people's journey with money and the things they did right with it, the things that did wrong with it, and how did they really come about getting their mindset with money. So every episode's different. We all have a good takeaway from them. So do me a favor, hit the like button, smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel, because every episode that I do is going to be different, as all our journeys are different. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week.